Okay, so in our project, what are the design constraints they given? They given that we have to access the endpoint URL. Second, we have to handle exception and validation. Number three, we have to uh, send status code with response header like 200, 404, okay, 405, 405, like that. We have so many status code. We have to send 202, like that. So many status code they given, right? Number four, what I seen yesterday, someone shown me. Number four, we have to create a separate table for authentication and authorization, correct? And number five, we have to, right, perform testing using JUnit and Mockito. So am I correct? These are the points we have to design in our uh, this project, right, everyone?
স্যার এই 5টা পয়েন্টস ফলো করতে হবে তো পুরো প্রজেক্টটাতেই?
হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ, তো পুরো প্রজেক্টটাতে করতে হবে, ইভেন প্রত্যেকটা মডিউলে করতে হবে।
মানে একেকজনকে এই 5টা করে কাজ করতেই হবে?
হ্যাঁ, একেকজনকে ধরো এই এন্ড পয়েন্ট অ্যাক্সেস তো সবারই করতে হবে, and we have to test with the postman. Second, we have to handle the global exception and validation, like we already did this. Third, today I'll show you how to set the status code with the response header. There is only one like particular class is there, response entity. Okay, and in this response entity object, whenever we are going to create, we are going to set the object also, the object which you want to present. Suppose customer object I want to present, and with this response entity object I can send the http status code 200, 400, like that. So that I'll show you today, this part also. Okay. Number four, we have to separate the table for authentication. We have to just implement the authentication and the authorization. This two part also. This is very, very important part. And number five, we have to perform the testing, like so JUnit testing or mock it. Acha, one thing I just want to know whether he told anything to like test our DB like service class, or we have to test our controller class. Anything he told, which particular module you need to test? Sagar sir told anything about this to you?
नो
टेस्टिंग
सर, सर
नहीं
कुछ
बोले
नहीं
हैं,
बोले सर टेस्टिंग
लेकिन
में।
टेस्टिंग आप लोग का डिजाइन कॉन्स्टेंट्स में है। देखिएगा आप लोग का, मैं प्रोजेक्ट वजीर आपका भी प्रोजेक्ट में होगा ना वो
हाँ सर,
डिजाइन।
टेस्टिंग का अलग मार्क्स है सर, 10 मार्क्स है टेस्टिंग का अलग।
हाँ, तो ये आपका सर्विस क्लास भी टेस्ट करने के लिए मैं बता दूंगा, और कैसे यूआरएल को टेस्ट करते हैं उसको भी मैं दिखा दूंगा। तो दैट इज आल्सो यू हैव टू कंप्लीट, ओके। एंड इन वन थिंग, माइक्रो सर्विस वी आर नॉट यूजिंग, राइट?
तो
माइक्रो सर्विस
माइक्रो सर्विस यूज नहीं कर रहे सर ये।
नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो देयर इज, बिकॉज माइक्रो सर्विस इज अ वेरी बिग कॉन्सेप्ट. We cannot say that I can complete the microservice in one day, or I can complete the microservice in 2 days also is not enough, 5 days also is not enough. So we have the very introduction level of microservice, and I'll show you the how to create a different service, and how to like centralize those service with the central server. So that is also we'll discuss on that. Okay, so microservice भी आप लोग को मैं सोच रहा हूँ कि ये माइक्रो सर्विस वाला पार्ट आपका प्रोजेक्ट खत्म हो जाएगा तब मैं इसको ये करूँ क्या,
Yes,
14
sir.
तारीख को प्रोजेक्ट खत्म हो रहा है,
Yes.
राइट?
Yes, sir.
14 तारीख को रहेगा, तो यदि
Yes,
मैं
Mike.
15 तारीख को तो आप लोग ज्वाइन नहीं करेंगे, उस दिन स्वतंत्रता दिवस मनाएंगे आप लोग, करेंगे ज्वाइन 15 तारीख को? नहीं तो नहीं, रहने दीजिए, 16th को कर देते हैं। 16th को मैं आने का ट्राई करूंगा, मैं बात करूंगा। हाँ, तो मैं एक बार वो सब भी दिखा दूंगा, और आज मैं आप लोग को एक चीज भी भेज दूंगा, कैसे वो एनोटेशंस के जितना एनोटेशंस हैं सबका लिस्ट, क्या एनोटेशन क्या काम करता है। ऑलरेडी आई हैव प्रिपेयर्ड दैट एंड आई जस्ट शेयर विथ यू। ओके, so this is what we have to complete, and then only we can able to complete our project. Correct. So now today we'll start with this authentication part, everyone. So this part is left, and like we have completed these two things, this first two steps. Now, what do you mean by, first of all, authentication of application? Any application, okay, web application. So we are designing web application, RESTful API. What do you mean by authentication? ऑथेंटिकेशन के मतलब क्या है?
Checking whether the user is authorized to access the page.
करेक्ट, checking whether the user is like authorized and authenticate user for our system or not. Okay, so what I just we learned in the like this particular MVC architecture in the case of this web application. So when we are sending the request, a request is going to dispatch a servlet, correct? Dispatcher servlet is going to entertaining intercepting all the requests which is come to the particular web server, right? Dispatcher servlet is a component which is going to like just say you that hey, I am here for you and I want to like give you the direction where you want to go, right? And dispatcher servlet is forwarding this request to the different controller. So controller is our Pojo classes, which is having some methods which is going to invoke based on our post mapping, get mapping, put mapping, page patch mapping, this type of requests, right? Now this dispatcher servlet is going to like without authenticating is going to forwarding this request to the controller, and our controller is providing the service. Okay, so this is one of the, you can say this is okay, this is fine, but if you are developing a secure application, this is not fine actually, because what will happen nowadays, if you see in the our मोबाइल्स, कहीं से भी देखिएगा, कुछ सॉफ्टवेयर हम लोग जब डाउनलोड करते हैं उसके साथ कुछ स्क्रिप्ट रन होता है, राइट? whenever you are downloading any softwares, like not secure softwares, so no, I'm not saying about the all softwares. Whenever you're downloading some softwares, so with that software some script they are running, and with that script once it'll run in your computer, it's going to just store that particular session object. Because what I'm saying, जब भी कोई लाइक एप्लीकेशन में हम लोग लॉग इन करते हैं या कुछ करते हैं, तो the server creating a session, right? And that session is going to store in the browser's cache browser's right memory. You can in Google, in Chrome, or if you're using any browser, so that particular session ID is going to store. And that particular software, that particular schema, once it will run, it's going to take your session ID and try to log in into your particular system, right? In your system with the same authenticate ID. Okay, so I need to secure this particular part actually. So I want, when someone will request to web server, dispatcher server is going to take that request. Okay, what I want to here I want to provide some filter, right? Here I am providing some filter concept. Okay, so what the filter will do, so here I'll, between the request and dispatcher servlet, I'll just provide one filter. Okay, what filter will do, filter will say, okay, now filter is the gate actually. Filter will say, okay, before you are going to the dispatcher servlet, come to me and just say your authentication details. So here filter is going to filter is providing like the authentication for us. Okay, so is authenticating every request whether the correct credential is giving or not. If you are giving the correct credential based on your, and here this is also doing the one more filter. So many filters are working before that actually. So filter one is going to authenticate you, filter two is going to authorize you. Okay, so authentication and authorization means, because user can be different type, user can be admin, user can be customer, user can be supplier, user can be anything, right, in any form. So one filter is saying that okay, hey, I'm for you, I'm going to authorize your request, authorize everything, authorize your request. Okay, so every request is going to be authenticate and every request is going to be authorized, and then only it's moving to dispatcher servlet, because dispatcher servlet is going to then communicate with handler mapping file. Handler mapping file, based on the information from the handler mapping file, dispatcher servlet is dispatch that request to the classes, controller classes, which is going to process our request. Controller classes are just map the request and process the request, right? And before going to the controller classes, I want to authorize my authenticate my request, and that is what we need to perform in our project also, right? So if in case I told you in the Spring is going to use the servlet concept, like a servlet, and here also Spring internally is going to use the servlet filter concept actually. So the same servlet filter concept is there in the servlet API also, and on that particular on the top of that particular like this particular servlet, they build this particular Spring. You can say this security, Spring security, right, with Spring Boot. Okay, so and this is going, Spring security is like, if I'll add this library and if I'll configure with the Spring Boot actually, then our entire REST API is should be well authenticated and it's going to be authorized also. Okay, so let me start our part actually how to like authorize my request with Spring security, right? Let me just create one project over here. Okay, so I'm just going to create one project here, new file, new, you can say Spring starter project. So I'm going to create one Spring Boot project. Okay, guys, one more thing, yesterday I seen that if you get any compatibility issue in your project, okay, suppose for me, I don't have the JDK 17 version. I am having suppose JDK 8 version. Someone having JDK 22. So in that case, the version are going to make you some problem. So in that case, I think whatever the version I already told, that with that version also you can able to complete this project. Okay. So I think version is not a constant. So you can use the any version also. So Spring AC1. Here I'm going to say that Spring security application name.
Sir, we have to do along with you.
Sorry. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Spring security REST.
স্যার,
হ্যাঁ, বলো।
বলছি নোটপ্যাডে যেটা একটু দেখালে একবার, মানে একটু বোঝালে, আমি একটু দেরি করে জয়েন করেছি।
হ্যাঁ
একবার জাস্ট
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, नोटपैड में এটাই বোঝালাম যে এটাই, यही मैं बोल रहा था मैं कि already we know the architecture of the Spring MVC, right? Spring MVC architecture আমরা জানি কি, যখনই whenever any request is coming to server, in case of the Spring MVC design pattern, so what's happening, it's going to intercept the request directly by the dispatcher servlet, right? No one is there to authenticate our request and authorize our request, right? And it's based on the handler mapping information. It's just giving you to okay, you can start and you can process our controller. right? But whenever we are going to develop some secure applications, we are performing this authentication and authorization part, right? So in servlet API, because see, this is the way the generation of web applications started actually. In Java, they started the web application using the servlet API, right? And in the servlet, top on the servlet API, they build Spring MVC. On the top of the Spring MVC, they build this Spring MVC with Spring Boot like that. Okay. So in case of the servlet API, there is one concept is there. I don't have that much of time actually to explain you that servlet API again. So there is a concept is there called servlet filter, right? Servlet filter. Servlet filter is what? Before going to pass the request to the any servlet, specific servlet, filter is going to intercept that request, and it's saying, please give your credential and go. Okay, that means it's going to authenticate your request and then saying that okay, then you can process that. You can able to process now. Okay, the Spring security, what they designed on the same pattern actually. Before going to make, before going to forward this request to the dispatcher servlet, it's saying, okay, I'm going to add for you some filters, and that filters, let's say 4 or 5 filters are there. Some filters are authenticating, some filters are right authorizing your request, some filters are right, you can say, customizing everything. So many like tasks are like accomplished by these particular filters, right? So whenever the request is coming, request is going through the filters, and whenever the response is going, response also is going through the filter. Okay, so this is what they prepared, and the same implementation they included in the Spring security. Okay, Spring security is once I'll add in my web application, then if I try to access any URL, I I'll get the error 403, 4 billion error. That means my particular application becomes secure. Once you'll give your credential, valid credential, then only you can able to access it. Okay. So the moment I'll add the Spring security, I can able to get that particular, like you can say, the implementation. But we can able to customize our like particular uh, this particular username password. Okay, you can like customize your authorization part by providing the special security configuration. Okay, that I'll come one by one. First I'm going to add this Spring security in our Spring Boot project, and we'll check what is going to happen now. Okay, now that is the reason I'm creating one Spring Boot project with, I given the name Spring Security REST. Okay, type is Maven, packaging is jar, Java version is 17, language is Java, and this all I'm going to create now. Next is here I'm going to use drive database server also. Let me just add this all dependency. MySQL driver I need. Obviously, I'll just fetch the uh, user credential from the database. Okay. So already we need this Spring Boot development tool. So to launch and reload my Spring Boot application, Spring Data JPA to work with the implementation to communicate with the database, Spring Security that we are going to learn now and we are going to implement, which is providing the authentication, authorization configuration for you, and it's going to authenticate every request which is going to the like dispatcher servlet. And we need Spring Web. Without this, we cannot able to develop application. So this 3, 4, 5 dependencies is enough to design the all constants, whatever they given in our project. Okay. So Spring Web, Spring Security, MySQL driver, Spring Data JPA, Spring Boot development tools. Okay. So now I'll say next. I'll go to the next.
Sir,
Yes.
type will be Maven and packaging will be jar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Packaging, you can say var also, no problem. Because web application now. Yes. And these dependencies we need. Okay. And say next, say finish. So see in my case, you can see here, this something is processing over here. Okay. In my case, I'm having JDK 1.8. In your case, is JDK 17 is there. You can use 3.3.2. But in my case, I have to use this 2.7.1 because let me just 2.7.1. And I'll also say you for the higher version also how I'll configure this swing security. That also I'll show you. Okay. And let me just update the Maven project once. So Maven update project. Okay. So now it's completed. Everything is fine. And MySQL version I have to give here. So just changing the few configuration in the project level. So version I'll say much 8.0.31. Save the file again. Now, so this my Spring Boot project is ready. Okay, and what is my source? src slash main slash Java is there. Okay, so use as a source folder. So now inside the src slash main slash Java, we have this package and we have this. Everything is there over here. You can see, and here I'll just add something system dot out dot print ln. Okay, and I'll say application started. Okay, application started. Okay, now in the src slash main slash Java folder, I'll just create one package here. So we'll say one package called controller. Inside the controller class, I'll just create one Java class here. I'll say suppose like let me just say user controller. Let me create user controller. Okay. User controller. And user controller, I'm going to just use as REST controller annotation. Already you know about that. So public, we can say string, we can say that. Let me just show you the response entity. So public response entity, response. See, there's one class is there called response entity, right? Extension of HTTP entity. Okay, that adds the HTTP status code, like what they mention in your project. Okay, 200, 400. So that I can able to add in our like response object. Okay, so I'll say as of I'm going to store the string object with that. I'll say get info. Okay, something I'm giving the name of this. Okay, and I'll return new response entity object because return type I given response entity object. Okay, and I'll just say welcome, and I'll say here HTTP status dot, you can say, see, these are the codes actually. See, they given over here. You can able to check your codes from here. See, in your code 202 is there. 202 means accepted. Okay, you can see already reported 208, bad gateway 502, bad request 400. Okay, uh, continue you don't need actually, created we need, so you can say created. Okay, so we'll get this particular response entity suppose. Okay, so this way we have to set your status code whatever they given in your application based on your, if like data is storing into the database, creating into the database, we can say created. If it is not, we'll say we can say that not accepted or bad request like that. Okay. So now I'll say here that get mapping. I'll say can say suppose get data or get info, anything. Okay. So now my controller is ready, and controller is like once I'll say get request from the HTTP, this method is going to be called, and this method is going to like add a object with the response and also add a status code like created. You can just based on your condition, you can able to like provide your status code as per the given in your project also, right? So we say accepted or something, or created or something like that. You can say created. Okay. And every status code you can check the what is the code is there for the status code. You can say 201. 201 is created. Okay. So let me run my application once. So I'm going to start my application. So run as Spring Boot application. Okay. Oh yes, we are getting this error every time, right? Whenever we are what we are doing, we are adding our we are creating our application with the Spring Data JPA and MySQL driver, and we are not giving this particular uh, configuration of the database, then we are getting this error, right? So why we are getting this error, everyone? क्यों ये error आता है actually? नहीं देने से क्यों नहीं देने से भी ये error आता है? Why? Because in case of the Spring Boot application, क्या होता है कि auto configuration करता है, right? It's going to configure. It's going to when the application started, everything is going to be configured, right? Everything is trying to create the object of entity manager. It's trying to create the object of entity manager factory, right? ये सब कुछ आपको बना के देना चाहता है, right? Configure everything and trying to give to you. बट जब ये कॉन्फ़िगर डेटाबेस का करना जाता है तो इसको डेटाबेस का कॉन्फ़िगरेशन इसको नहीं मिलता है, राइट? एंड दैट इज द रीजन it's not going to it's not able to start. Okay, so what we can do over here, we can able we have to connect to the database. That is the reason we added the dependency. So let me just add the database credential part over here. Let me just this can say here what is this application.properties file over here. So in your case, you are using a shared database. Here you have to use the IP address for your shared database, and you can able to share your like that particular database and able to like connect with the database, not share. Let me just open the MySQL workbench. Okay. नहीं तो उसी डेटाबेस में रन करते हैं CSJ35 REST DB1 REST DB2 कुछ बना लेते हैं अपना डेटाबेस है. So create database, okay, my REST security DB1, okay. So let me just okay, now let me run this code once again by stopping it everything. So let me just terminate it. Let me run, and let me say servers dot port is 6080 anything, and let me just update the Maven. If you'll see that anything you are updating configuration or something, try to update the Maven once. Okay, and now let's start the application. Run it from here. Anything. See, application started. Okay, and you can see here something is generated for you. See, using generated security password, something is generated for you. Okay, so once I have added Spring Security in our application, see, they just generated one filter is there for you, which is generating the like password for you, this automatically, right? Okay, now let's try to start the server once and call the API 6080. I'm going to use localhost 6080, and my user controller is this get info is this. So what I'll do here, I'll go to the localhost 6080 slash get info, and you can see something different scenario over here, right? You're getting the some login page over here, right? And see, this whenever I'm trying to hit any API, any endpoint, I'm by default this is going to be open login page, right? So one filter is designing some login page for you. Okay, you can see this is the HTML code for this login page is there for you, right? So someone is going to design the login page for you, and you can see here some ID also is available over here. Says, see, this is the like ID is actually available over here. Session ID, you can see. Now let me say, what is this user? User is the default username, and you can see here this is the password they generated for us. Okay. This is the password they generated for us. Okay. Let me just go to here, and you can see now it's moving to the get info and it's saying welcome. Okay. Now I told it's also maintaining the session for you, because whenever it's time to log in, it's also maintaining the session for you. Now I want to get that session ID. I told you it's also maintaining the session, right? So okay, you can say session. So request servlet. I told you we can this Spring entirely built on the top of the servlet. You can also use HTTP servlet request ID. Servlet request request. Okay, and if you want to just print the session ID over here, just I'm printing over here. Okay, request dot get session dot get ID. Every session having the ID, so just I'm fetching the ID of the session. Okay, so now let me, yeah, it's already started. Let me just run it. User is the default username and password is this. Back credential, I think some new password is already generated for us in the second execution. So this is the password. Okay, so this is the default scenario I'm showing, right?
এই পাসওয়ার্ডটা কোথায় জেনারেট হচ্ছে?
Password. It's going to the login page, invite credential. পাসওয়ার্ডটা তোমার নাও এটা তোমার একটা ইন্টারনালি জেনারেট করছে একটা ফিল্টার আমি বললাম না যে everything is coming through the filter one filter some filters they created internally and that filter they are just designing this password by some authentication and that password is going to show display over here এটা পাসওয়ার্ডটা আর ডিফল্ট ইউজার হচ্ছে ইউজার
এটা এক্সিকিউশনের টাইম নিয়ে দেখাবে।
আমরা এটা করবো না আমরা তো আমাদের ওই ইউজার নেম পাসওয়ার্ড দিয়ে দাঁড়াও তোমার ইউজার let me just run it again 2 minutes টার্মিনেট করে আর একটা রান করি তো yes 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 अब ये देखिए दिस टाइम यू कैन गेट सी हम लोग देखिए नया पासवर्ड हम लोग को ये मिला है so user and we'll give the password let's check
सर हम लोग भी तो डिफाइन कर सकते हैं ना अपना पासवर्ड बार बार ये अलग अलग
हाँ
पासवर्ड
वही तो हम अपना माने जस्ट हम ये करके ये करने के लिए बता रहे थे हम लोग भी डिजाइन कर सकते हैं सी यू कैन सी द सेशन आईडी आल्सो वी कैन एबल टू प्रिंट यू कैन सी ये जस्ट दिखाने के लिए ये किए वजीर हम लोग भी अपना यूजर नेम पासवर्ड दे सकते हैं डेटाबेस से भी लेके दिखा सकते हैं दैट आई एम शोइंग नाउ तो ये समझ में आया कि स्प्रिंग सिक्योरिटी ऐड करने से क्या होता है राइट वी आर बाय डिफॉल्ट गेटिंग द लॉगिन पेज राइट
স্যার
नाउ
ওই জাস্ট ওটা অ্যাড করলে মানে স্প্রিং সিকিউরিটি ডট ওই মানে রেস্ট যেটা আছে
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
মেইন
হ্যাঁ
মেইন ক্লাসে ওটা অ্যাড করলে এটা দেবে পুরোটা।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ ওটা অ্যাড করলে এটা তোমার পুরোটা দিয়ে দেবে কোনো আদার্স কনফিগারেশন চাই না এটার জন্য এবার নাও in the application.properties file I can also able to like set my own username password spring dot security dot this is the predefined keyword user dot name I'm giving username suppose abc spring dot security dot user dot password I'm giving xyz suppose so now I'm not just trying to give from this then I'll come go to the database also right so now if I'll run this now already is running and xyz I given the xyz and abc I given I think abc let me check once abc is the username xyz is the password so abc is the username xyz is the password and let me just say get info I'll get welcome so we can also able to set over here but that is not our concern actually that just for like I shown you how to configure over here our concern is how to take from the database and how to configure that and how to perform the all this authorization and all right so let me say has for this commented this part okay so by default it will generate the password for you and everything will happen but I want to configure something different way right so what I'll do in the src slash main slash java already I'm having the root folder and already I'm having the sorry root package and already I'm having the controller package also and inside the controller we having the user controller class okay now what I want to do over here I'll create one class over here called sorry one package called model let me just create a different packages dot model so I'll create a different package called service. I'll create a package called repository dot repository. I'll create a package called dot security. Okay, I'll create service is done, controller is there. Okay, so every packages are there: model, repository, security, service. Okay, controller. Okay, every packages are there, right? Now in the model package, let's create one Java class here called user. Okay, and I'll say now the user, let me just terminate it. Now I'll say the private long user ID. So first we'll just store the user, right? Username. Okay, private string user password. Okay, and private string user role. Okay, and I'm just generating the segregator matrix for this. Correct. And I'll say this is my entity. Entity, and I can change the table name. Okay, table I'm going to import from Java Persistence package. This is my @ID. Okay, and so this is what I did over here. Okay, now in the this part, let me just repository. Okay, repository. I'm going to create one interface called user repository. Okay, and I'll say that repository not required actually when optional implements, sorry, extends JPA repository, will give user, will give long user. I'm going to import from the model package. Okay. So in the service, I'll create a class. I'll say my user service. Okay. Now, so this all components I have created over here: user controller, user.java, user repository to communicate with the database, and my user service. And in the service layer I created, in the security layer, I'll just create a class. Okay, security layer, I'll create a class called I can give any name of the class. So I'm giving the name of this class called web security or anything. You can give any name for this class, web security, right, or anything. security configure web security list. Okay. So this component also I created, and I have to just provide some configuration with some like annotations and all. Right. So before that, let me create this table. But how I'll create a table? Let me just go to this here and let me run this application. Okay, run this application. So my application is running. Nothing else. Everything is fine now. See. Okay, so let me just run. Let me just check. Everything is running. There is no configuration. That is the reason it's providing this password for us, but everything is working fine, right? And in the database, uh, my REST security DB1, my REST security DB1, this is the database, and it's created a user table also. You can see username, but everything is right here. Everything I need to fill the data over here. We can also use post request, but let me fill over here. We'll just fetch it from here, right? So insert into just user table, user underscore table. Okay, and we can give the values. Right. User ID is auto generated. I hope no. I think let me check once. Okay, no. So let me give the user ID also. So user ID 102, username is admin. Okay, and user password is admin at the rate 123. Okay, and user role is suppose admin. Okay, so let me just store one more value over here in this table. Then only we can do the login. We can also store from there also, but that I'm saying because we need some authorization for that. That also I'll see you. I'll take from there also. So user or customer, uh, customer, I can say customer at the rate 123. Okay, customer 123, and role I'll say as customer. Okay, and let me just complete this part. No database selected. So use my REST security DB1. Okay. And you can say this table is created for me. Okay, and I can say I'll go to here now. Okay, so everything is there, and in the user controller, in the sorry, in the web security, I'll just now this web security I have created one additional configuration class where this I'll provide the configuration for my this particular Spring security, because Spring security by default it's going to generate you this particular password for you and the default username in user. You can also set the username password that I shown you from the application.properties file using this key name called spring.security.user.name or spring.security.user.password, right? But we can also create our separate additional configure class, and I can able to make this class as a configuration class for the Spring security by using @ enable web security annotation. You can see there is one annotation is there called enable web security annotation. See, this is what annotation. Add this annotation to an configuration class to have the Spring security configuration defined inside the in any web security configurer class, or more than likely to extending the use web security configurer adapter class. Means we can also inherit this class, and which provides the some methods. This is the abstract class actually, and this provides some methods actually, like configure method. We can configure our particular credential. We can configure our authorization part, everything, by providing this particular methods of this web security configurer adapter class. Okay, so this everything can be enabled and can be able to like uh, able to get the facility once I'll add this annotation. Okay, and explicitly I'm going to make this as a configuration class. Okay, configuration class, configuration. So Spring Secret configuration. Okay, so everything I have that deeper over here, and I'm going to say extends. Okay, extends, what we can do over here, we can able to extends web security configurer adapter. Okay, so web security, oh I wrote web adapter. See, this is one of the abstract class actually. Okay, now this is deprecated in this version, but in the Spring 6 we are not need to extend this web security configurator actually. We can just provide one annotation and we can able to configure. Okay, so that also, that script also give to you. Okay, so and here you can see this web security configurator adapter providing one method here called public. Okay, this method is going to provide it void, you can say configure. Okay, and in the configure I'm going to pass one authentication manager. Okay, builder class is there, that object I need to pass. So builder can give anything, and okay, so authentication manager builder. So I want to build the authentication manager with the credential. So authentication manager builder. So builder object dot user details service. Okay, what is this user details service? So user details service, as I'll explain, but as of now I'm giving null. I'll explain this. Okay, and this method throws one exception called exception. Okay, so and if any credential will be invalid, it will throw the exception for that. It can able to handle any exception. So authenticate. So what this web security configurer adapter class uh, is, you see, this is the overridden method actually. This method we can also use override annotation, because this method is defined in declared in this class. Okay, and we can able to configure this method, and we can able to like pass the object of authentication manager builder. Okay, so once this class is going to be called, okay, this is going to be called, the builder object is going to be created, and with the builder object we can able to call the user details service. So user details service, and in the user details service we have to provide our service details. Our service details means the service which is containing our username and password. Okay, that I have to provide. But already I created our service class, my user details service, right over here. So that object I have to provide over here. So I'll say my user details service, user service actually, not service. Okay, and that, let me make it private. Okay, all the properties should be well encapsulated, and I'll use here auto void property for it, and I'll pass this service object, but I have to write some code in that. My service class is empty. Okay, but this is not expecting. Actually, you can see the error here. I am getting one error once I'm passing this my user service. This is not required plain my user service. This required some my user service which can provide this credential to this object. Okay, and that user service is expecting over here. Okay, so that I need to pass over here right now. So this is that user service. Okay, so let me go to that particular my user service. Okay, in the my user service we have we can extends, sorry, implements one of the interface called user details service is an interface. Okay, and this interface provides one method called load user by name. Okay, so this is very important method actually, and this method is providing load user by name, means we can able to load the user by the name of the by the name actually. Okay, so that particular service I need to call it this user service, right? So this method will do what? Once this method I'll call from the controller actually to get the username. Okay, we'll pass the username, and that username, what we'll do, we'll pass it to the repository, and repository what will do, it will call the particular uh, method, right? Sorry, it will just executes a query to get the data or user object from the database, right? So what I'll do here, I'll quickly go in the repository, and the repository I'll say that public user object I need get user by name. Okay, get user by name. Okay, you can give any name, and already you know string username. Okay, you can also have the one method also find user by name. Okay, so and I'll say here I'll write a query over here. Okay, and I'll give the query name select you from user. You use the alias name where u dot username equal to suppose question mark 1. Okay, so you can see user is this, username is this. Based on that, I'm going to, where is my repository, I'm going to fetch this object. Okay, and this I'm going to call it from here. Okay, so for that I need a repository also. So private user repository. So the repository I'm going to auto add. Okay, and repository dot get what I wrote that repository. Let me give some small name for that repos. Okay, so user object I need, and repos. Okay, so repos dot we can see get user by name method. We can able to call that method. Okay, so get user by name, and I'll pass this username to that. So see, user is our model package I have to import, and username in should be small, then only it can take. So username. Okay, and if that username will not be found, this method is fine to throw the error for you, user not found exception. Okay, so you can also able to handle this error. Okay, or else if everything will be fine for you, then what I'll do here, I can return, see, I'll return one object of user details. Okay, so I'll say I need the object of user details. So in the org dot spring framework, let me just write over here. You can write over here also inside the security package. Okay, security package. Okay, there is one particular a class is there, so called security dot, we can say core dot, we can say user details dot user, and this is the user. Okay, dot user. Okay, and this method is going to take 3 parameters, and return type is going to take 3 parameters, right? And this is going to, like, returning this object means we are going to getting the object of user details. So, and this is going to hold the user details. Okay, so user details dot user, what we are passing here, we have to pass the user dot get username, and we need to pass the user dot get user password. Okay, so user dot get user password. Okay, and we need to pass the some authorities. Now I'm not passing any authorities, but it's required some object of collection type. That is the reason I'm passing. Suppose one array list object. Okay, so it's okay. So you can also add some roles to that, admin, user, and you can able to pass it over here. Sorry, this is required any object. That is the reason. Array list I'm going to import from the util package. Okay, so this class I'm going to load user by name, and the moment I'll go to the now web security, you can see the error also will go, because this my user service is now implementing user detail service. Okay, so user detail service, so this method can in this builder having this method called user detail service, which expecting the object of user detail service actually. So user detail service provides this method called load user by name. So this is one interface, user detail service, which provides one method called load user by name, and we'll call this method user detail service from the our controller. Okay, we'll pass the username, and based on the username we'll call the repository. So that is the reason I have injected the repository also over here. You can see I have injected the repository, and from the repository we are saying user get user by name. We are passing the username, means we are calling this method, and it's returning the user object, and that user object, that credential, I'm binding with my user details object, and that I'm returning, because that is the return type of the method user details object. And you can see here that user details object I'm passing in the parameter of this user details service method, which is provided by the authentication manager builder. So this is going to return the authentication manager actually, which is going to authenticate our requests. Okay, so that I'm configuring over here. Okay. So guys, give me 10 minutes. I'll just have some water and some tea, and then I'll come back again.
सर
हाँ, हम्म।
वो वेब सिक्योरिटी में सर वो दो
आपका जब भी हमें लॉगिन पेज ओपन कर रहा था, तो एक जब भी मैं ये कर रहा था, आपका एप्लीकेशन को रन करा रहा था, तो एक लॉगिन पेज ओपन हो रहा था, तो वो एक फिल्टर कर रहा है। मान लीजिए कोई फिल्टर आपके लिए HTML कोड लिख दिया, कोई फिल्टर मतलब उसको ऑथेंटिकेट किया, कोई फिल्टर आपका ऑथराइजेशन किया, सपोज ऐसा 2-3 फिल्टर हैं। तो जब भी डिस्पैचर सर्वलेट के पास रिक्वेस्ट जाने से पहले उस फिल्टर के पास से वो रिक्वेस्ट जाता है। फिल्टर पहले वो यूजर इंटरफेस दिखाएगा, नेक्स्ट फिल्टर आपको यूजर नेम पासवर्ड देने के बाद आप लॉगिन करेंगे, तब वो आगे बढ़ाएगा, ऐसे करके है। तो ये इंटरनली वर्क हो रहा है।
तो सर ये फिल्टर इंप्लीमेंट कहाँ हुआ है? कंट्रोलर में जो आपने यूजर डॉट कंट्रोलर बनाया था उसमें हुआ है या इसमें हुआ है वेब सिक्योरिटी में?
ना, हम लोग अभी फिल्टर इंप्लीमेंट नहीं किए हैं। हम लोग इसमें फिल्टर इंप्लीमेंट नहीं किए। फिल्टर ये हम लोग डिफॉल्ट फिल्टर से काम कर रहे हैं। वो वेब सिक्योरिटी में वो ऑलरेडी इंप्लीमेंटेड है फ्रेमवर्क में। ये देखिए, ये एक्चुअली कॉन्सेप्ट आपको सर्वलेट में एक एपीआई में एक कॉन्सेप्ट है फिल्टर बोल के, वही फिल्टर एक्चुअली वैसा ही टाइप के फिल्टर वो लोग बनाए इंटरनली। हम लोग बस कॉन्फ़िगर कर रहे हैं इसको, और हम इसको मतलब इंप्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं। अब अपना कॉन्फ़िगरेशन प्रोवाइड करने के लिए हम लोग अपना कॉन्फ़िगरेशन दे सकते हैं, अपना फिल्टर भी लगा सकते हैं, हम लोग अपना फिल्टर भी बना सकते हैं। जैसे टोकन वोकन जनरेट करना हो तो अपना फिल्टर बना सकते हैं, है ना। लेकिन आप लोग का इस प्रोजेक्ट के अकॉर्डिंग ऑथराइजेशन और ऑथेंटिकेशन है यूजिंग स्प्रिंग सिक्योरिटी, है ना जी।
तो सर उसमें रिस्पॉन्स एंटिटी लगा के जो हम लोग अभी कर रहे थे यूजर कंट्रोलर में, वो क्या था?
नहीं देखिए, रिस्पॉन्स एंटिटी में क्या हम कर रहे थे वो तो दूसरा, वो तो सिक्योरिटी का पार्ट नहीं है। रिस्पॉन्स एंटिटी में जो कहा गया यूजर कंट्रोलर में, इधर राइट, इधर जो ऑब्जेक्ट, ये क्या करें कि हम लोग इसके पहले क्या लिखते थे, डायरेक्ट स्ट्रिंग लिख सकते हैं, डायरेक्ट
यस
स्ट्रिंग भी
सर,
रिटर्न कर सकते हैं।
यस सर।
तो इसमें हम लिख सकते हैं रिटर्न वेलकम। लेकिन मैं चाहता हूं कि उस वेलकम स्ट्रिंग के साथ, मतलब जो ऑब्जेक्ट में स्ट्रिंग ऑब्जेक्ट में भेजा उसके साथ कुछ स्टेटस कोड भी भेजूं, वेब स्टेटस कोड, कि ये क्या हुआ है, क्रिएटेड है कि डिनाइड है कि क्या है, राइट। तो
जैसे
ये
सर
जो,
404 200
हाँ
ओके ये सब
वैसा
आता
कुछ
है।
स्टेटस कोड हम लोग आता है वेब एप्लीकेशन में। तो हम लोग क्या यूज कर सकते हैं, रिस्पॉन्स एंटिटी का क्लास टाइप का रिटर्न टाइप।
अच्छा,
ऑब्जेक्ट जब भी हम बनाएंगे, इस ऑब्जेक्ट के साथ हम लोग, मान लीजिए कस्टमर ऑब्जेक्ट इसका रिटर्न टाइप है, लिस्ट ऑफ ऑब्जेक्ट इसका रिटर्न टाइप है, वी कैन एबल टू पास दैट। एंड हम लोग अपना स्टेटस कोड भी भेज सकते हैं। स्टेटस कोड
समझ
देखिए
गया।
जैसे क्रिएटेड है, जैसे आपका प्रोजेक्ट का डिजाइन कॉन्सेप्ट में ये दिया हुआ है, देखिए एक्सेप्टेड है, ऑलरेडी रिपोर्टेड है, बैड गेटवे है, बैड रिक्वेस्ट है, बैंडविड्थ, तो ये सब है। तो आपका जैसे जैसे है 200 मेंशन किया है वो लोग कि कब कौन सा यूज करना है। तो क्रिएटेड दिखेंगे, जब मेरा सपोज कुछ हम क्रिएट कर रहे हैं रिसोर्स, तो हम लिख सकते हैं क्रिएटेड, समझ गए ना।
यस सर, समझ गया।
एक्सेप्टेड ऐसे करके लिख सकते हैं, तो यू कैन एबल टू जनरेट आवर ओन स्टेटस कोड। तो नाउ अब इसमें हम लोग क्या किए कि रिपोजिटरी, ये वाला समझ में आया, ये वाला समझ में आया जी, ये वाला ये क्वेरी,
ये सर, ये तो हम आ गया है सर, ये तो पहले भी किए थे।
ये समझ में आया, लोड यूजर बाय नेम, लोड यूजर बाय नेम, यूजर कंट्रोलर, एवरीथिंग राइट। तो मैं थोड़ा सा एक टी ब्रेक लेता हूँ, उसके बाद से फिर कंटिन्यू करता हूँ।
ओके सर। सर वेब सिक्योरिटी में बस
Yes, sir.
थोड़ा सा डाउट है।
ओके सो फ्लो क्या था, कंट्रोलर बना लिए थे, वी हैव कंप्लीटेड यूजर, we have completed the repository, we have completed this my user service, and let me just annotate it with the service annotation. Okay, so let me annotate. So in service annotation, or the user details service should be implements, then only we can able to load the user from the repository. So we're calling the load user by name. We'll call this method from the client, means controller, by passing the username, and that username will be passed to the repository. It will fetch the user object, and that user object we are binding with the user details object. And in the web security part, in this class, we have already uh, configured this. We have already provided the annotation, enable web security annotation, which is going to like provide the specific action to configure our web security, right. It's going to extend this class is it's inherited from the web security configure adapter, and I'm going to use this my user service object over here. Why my user service object I'm going to bind? Because in the configure method I'm passing authenticate manager builder. So what's happening? See, this authenticate authenticate manager actually uh, providing the method internally, I'm saying, is method called authenticate. Okay, so and it's authentic for authentication we need the username, password, and everything. This is going to take is taken from the authentication provider. Okay, authentication provider, right. So in the authentication provider internally, it's these classes are there, actually these components are there. This is going to take the user information from the user details service. User details service is going to communicate with the database. So like this way, from database it's taking, it's giving this to the object of authentication provider. Provider is going to pass that object to the authentication manager. Authentication manager is going to call the authenticate method. So here we have the configure method, and inside that we are going to build the object of manager by using the authentication manager builder. and it's going to return the is builder object. So it's going to say that it's build it's going to return the builder object by just building the authentication manager object by using the object of the my user service. My user service is which type? My user service is user details service interface type. Which method is there? This having this predefined abstract method load user by name. That method I'm overriding and I'm passing the username, and based on the username I'm going to fetch the object from the user from the database, and I'm binding with this object, and that I'm going to binding this with the authentication manager object also. So that this part one configuration is done. Okay, but one more thing actually, see every time what we observe over here that here this particular uh, our Spring security is going to create this particular why is that my no, this time is not created, is creating the default password, right? Encrypted password, some encryption format, right? So but here I don't I don't want any encryption format or anything. I don't need actually. I want my password is the plain text actually, plain string. Okay, so I don't need any password encoder, all right, a type of objects. I want to need a password encoder which can encode the text type of passwords, right? And for that, I'm going to configure one more object here called password. You can say encoder, okay, encoder, okay. And I'll say the method you can give password encoder, okay, encoder. You can just give this method over here, and in this password encoder field, inside this method, I'll say return. Okay, there is one class is there, no, okay, no op, okay, password encoder. Okay, so the no op password encoder is deprecated for this version, but we can also able to use the password encoder is not secure actually. So this is not secure because always we need some mechanism, some algorithms to secure our password. We can we can also use the SHA 256 algorithms and all. For that we have to generate the JWT token and all. We can also able to use, but this is actually used to password encode is provided legacy and testing purpose only, is not only if it is you can say you don't need the actually some encryption format. You need to just a password encoder that does nothing actually, useful for testing the where working with the plain text password may be preferred. Okay, so in that case we need this object actually. So we'll say password no ops password you can say encoder dot. I need the object for that. Get instance. Get instance is going to return the object of this password encoder. Okay, and in case I need the object of the password encoder, in case of Spring, we can use the bin. Now, now one more question. Question is, already I'm having this uh, configuration class, right? And then also I'm creating the configuration class separately by providing this configuration annotation. The reason is what? Before going the request to the dispatcher servlet means before going to start this dispatcher servlet, once it will start the application. First the security part is this class is going to be actually loaded actually, right? And this is going to configure everything, right? So and that time what do we need this, I need the extra configuration task. Here I'm providing this extra configuration task by providing the enable OF security configuration, and we are just providing the separate configuration for the Spring security. Spring security will get the details from the database by using this way, by configuring this way, and also we can decide which type of password encoder object we need. So by using this object we can able to do that. So already in the Spring core we learned this concept called how to instantiate explicit object bin actually for this particular by calling the method. So Spring container will call this method, and it will once call the method, this is going to execute this statement. It's going to return the password encoder object, and that encoder object, the Spring Core is going to manage it. Whenever we need, we can it's provided that object for us, right? So this is the configuration we are doing over here, and one more configuration I need to for the authorization purpose. So otherwise we cannot able to run this part, and we cannot able to do anything for this. So what the next authorization we need? We need, right, to one more configuration class. So public void, we can say configure. Okay, configure, one more configure, but this configure is overloaded actually. So we can configure with the HTTP security. Okay, so there is a HTTP security. Okay, you can say this class, and let's give this name HTTP. So we are going to provide some configuration because everything is coming to the HTTP protocol, right? And we have to configure that protocol also. So because that protocol HTTP secret, so this HTTP actually we're not configuring the protocol, the request which is kind of like coming through that protocol actually, and we are going to configure generally the HTTP that our security, web security actually, by providing this object of HTTP web security. HTTP dot, we can say, see, any cross forgery request, okay, we can able to disable by using the method called disable. So http.csrf.disable, we can disable that, and we can say that uh, authorize request, whatever the request will be authorized. So there is a method, so some chain of the methods are there. Authorize HTTP request. So HTTP request, we can say, or any request. If you need any request, you can use authorized requests also. Okay, so dot, let me just write down by down. I'll also explain it one more time. Okay, dot, we can say that uh, with and matches, there is a method actually which is returns authorized URL object. So and matches, if our request will match with login, because I need to do the login, so that time it should allow me to log in actually. So I'll say permit me to log in, otherwise it will ask again the username password, but I need to log in with my credential. So I'll say permit that particular part. And if you want to save the file also, you can say dot and matches. Okay, and matches. If I want to add the user or registration the user, I'll say if it is reg, then also, let's say I'll say permit all. Okay, so if the request, by default the requests are authenticated in case of Spring Security, right? Whatever you observed, unless we are not giving the username password, we cannot able to a link to any cannot able to hit any URL, and you cannot able to get the data, right? So if I'm saying here, if my request name login, then permit that request. If the request name is registration, started with the registration, then permit that request. Okay, or else I'll say, or else if any type of request, other request, let me just commit over here. If it is any other type of request other than that, so there's they given the plain method. If any request, okay, then that request should be authenticated. Okay, so if any request, so that request should be authenticated with the HTTP basic. See, you can say and, by and is going to return the object of HTTP security. Again, once we get the object of HTTP security, we'll say we want to say with the HTTP basic, or you can say HTTP basic is there. Basic, I'll say you what is this basic authorization process is basic object. So it's going to return the object of, you can say, HTTP basic configurator. So by using that, we can provide the object. And what I'll do, I want that, let me just close this part. Sorry. And what I want actually, and I want that my session also should be managed, because it's internally manage the session also. So dot session manage, you can say session management, okay, dot session management creation policy, you can say session management is that is there, session creation, actually session creation policy. I'll say here there is, let me just session creation policy dot, I'll say stateless. I want to create every time a stateless session, so that every time this request will be thought as a stateless process. Okay, so that will do. Let me just check this. Why this error? Why is this? 2 minutes. So HTTP CSRF I have disabled and authorized request with ant matches, then login, then permit, or ant matches if it is anything, then permit, or any request should be authenticated, and HTTP basic. Okay, so basic authentication configurator is going to provide. Okay, and session management dot, I used session creation policy, and session creation policy dot state list I have used for this. 2 minutes. I have to use some exception. Yeah, so it's going to throw some exception if it is something we not want. So here I have configured some basic configuration plot over here right now. So this we did over here, and now let me, so we have completed this part. Now let me just design our controller. Okay, so this is the configuration we have did. We have configured with our details of the particular uh, username password with the authentication manager by calling the user details service, and here we are authorizing actually. Okay, first we are going to, so any, because what will happen whenever this cross request forgery, what will happen in this case, actually what is this cross request forgery? That is means like if any request is coming through the HTTP protocol, so this HTTP, with the HTTP security I'm configuring this part key. If any request is type of this, so this right, cross forgery type of request is will be disabled, it's not enabled. Okay, by default it is enabled. So we are going to, this all are the methods, and this method, see, disable method is going to return the object of HTTP security. Okay, and on this object we are providing uh, on this object we are providing sorry, we are calling authorized request method. So authorized request, but here allows the restricting access based on the HTTP servlet request. So we HTTP servlet request because internally it's, I told it's working servlet API only. So allows to restricting the access based on upon the HTTP servlet request, and using request matcher. Okay. So now on that I'm applying some matches, right? And matches part. If it is login, then request is coming through login, then permit that request. Okay. If it is request coming for registration, then permit that request. Okay, or else if any other request should be authenticated with the particular username password, and that should be configured with the HTTP basic authentication process. And finally, the session management is doing what? Every time it's going to create, for every request is going to create a new session object. Okay, so that is the reason it's stateless session I given. So okay, so every time we have to create a new session object. So this what everything we have given over here, configured over here. And let me just go to the user controller once. Okay, in the user controllers, okay, we can also do the registration process also over here. But before that, I need some object which I'm going to use over here. That is, I need my user service. Okay, my user service. service object, okay, and that I'll use auto void annotation, okay, and I'll use the suppose login once, okay. So let me just maximize it, okay. But what I'll do here, I'll create one public, okay, user object, okay, create user, okay, and we'll say request body. Sorry, not create user. You can also create the user also. Let me just use request body. Okay, that also you can able to do. Request body user. Okay, and here I can say post mapping also. Post mapping. I'll say if the user is coming for registration reg, that is going to be permitted by the spring security. You can able to access this method. Okay, and here I'm going to import the user object on the model class, and here I'm going to in the service. Let me just do one more thing here in the my user service. Do one more thing here. I'm going to define one more method, public user save user, okay, and we're going to provide the user object type over here, and I'll say repos dot uh, you can say save, and instead of entity I can pass user, okay, and I'll use here, so return, I'll use return statement over here. We can also able to perform the registration process also. So let me go to the controller, and we'll say return service object dot save user object. Okay. Now one more method I'm going to define over here, that a login method, because after registration we'll perform the login, okay, in the user module specifically. So what I'll do here, I'll just perform this login operation also. So what I'll do here, public, we can say, okay, string, let me say string, okay, string, 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 you can say get login method, okay, and for login I only give two information, username and password, right? So what I'll do here in the model package, I'm going to create one class which will provide only username and password, okay. So I'll say the class name, I can give any name. I'm giving the class name called authenticate, okay. Authenticate is the class name. Authenticate request also you can say anything, and I'm going to give here string username, and public authenticator should be name string user password, okay, and I'll use the segregator method for this. So segregator method for this. So now, and I'll annotate this with the at the rate. No need to annotation, because I don't want to save into a database, because already user will be saved into to the database, right? So what I'll do in the user controller, let me go to the user controller, and here I'll say request body, request UUEST body authenticate 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 authentication क्या आ रहा है? Authenticate with auth or anything you can write. Authenticate we have to import from the model package, okay. So this is also because I give some information, so this is also I'm going to send using the post mapping, and here I'll say okay, I want to get the login, okay. So once I'll say get login, I have to give this particular information. So slash I say login, suppose slash login, okay, post mapping slash login authenticate request, and here I'll give that service object dot load user by name method I can call, and I'll say auth dot get username. I'll pass over here, and this will return the object of user details service. Okay, so user details service. Okay, so user details, user details. Okay, and load user by name throws the exception. That exception we can handle over here. Now, load user by name auth dot 2 minute you हाँ you load user by name method का user details service था, right? हाँ, 1 मिनट ना, इसका रिटर्न टाइप स्ट्रिंग है, लेकिन इस मेथड का सर्विस ऑब्जेक्ट में कहाँ गया मेरा मेरा सर्विस ये में माय यूजर सर्विस यूजर डिटेल्स, हाँ यूजर डिटेल्स सर्विस नहीं था, यूजर डिटेल्स यू हैव टू गिव ओनली सर्विस लिखती है, यूजर डिटेल्स यू हैव टू इंपोर्ट फ्रॉम द स्ट्रिंग सेक्रेटरी. Okay, so user details object we got, and in the user details object also we having the username and password. So let me check here. User details, you can able to print it, you can able to say return response entities के साथ करते हैं ताकि आप लोग को एक बार और प्रैक्टिस हो जाए कैसे यूज करते हैं response entity, and string नहीं करके response entity से साथ करेंगे. So here I'll pass string, and here I'll say return new response entity. ऐसे नहीं, let me just do one thing. If user details not equal to null, though return new response entity with this message here called header 2 or header 3. Font color we can use as green, red, anything you can able to use for this. Okay, and we can say that header 2, and we can just comment this over here, and we'll say that user details dot get username. Okay, so we'll fetch the username. Okay, and we'll just say the font we can able to close over here, and we can able to close the header 2 also, or as plain text also you can able to implement. And with that, so this is what string I'm going to pass, and we can pass one more parameter, and that is http status code. Okay, and I'll say status code is uh, accepted. So, okay, accepted is which, what is the number of accepted? 202. So like that way for you also they given in the project you have to handle a different type of status code. Okay, so that also you have to maintain that, and finally we are going to complete it by terminating this. Okay, else part I'll say if not null. Okay, if null then it's fine, if not null then I'll say return new response entity of I'll say invalid credential. Okay, invalid credential, and I'll say http status dot, I'll say bad request. Okay, or anything you can give the status code over here, right? So I'll say this bad request. So this is what we are going to use here. Response entity आप कोई भी endpoint के साथ उसको return करा सकते हैं, and with the status code, the different status code which you are going to use. So this I have created a controller over here. Let me check the bracket mistakes and all. Okay, so here I have closed this, but I need to close the class also. This one. So everything is fine over here. We have created this, all these components one by one, everything. And this user controller is, we need to authenticate, and everything is fine now. You can able to run this code, and response entity, request body, everything is there. We're going to call these things, then only you can able to understand this. Let me terminate this everything from here, and let me start my Spring Boot application. Okay, you can just run as Spring Boot application, and applications is going to be started over here. You can check in the console. See, application started, right? Your server is saying that I am started to provide you the service. 6080 is the port number. So let me go to this postman to check this everything. So postman is there for you to test this, all this REST API. Whatever the API's endpoints you have created, you can check the URLs, whether the URLs are correctly working or not, right? So before going to integrate with the front end application, you can able to, right, use this part actually. Now let me just check one thing. What is this? First I'll check. I'll go to the user controller, and I'll go to get info material access. So what should be the URL for this? The URL which you created. So it's a local host, and port number is 6080 slash get hyphen info. So this is my URL actually. If I'll call this URL, if I'll access this URL over here from this postman, so let me just say here, this is my URL. Get is the request. Postman, I'll check, and you can see saying one status here, forbidden. So that means it's unauthorized actually. So now Spring Securities came into the picture, saying that you cannot able to access it without any proper authentication. So 401 is similar to 403 previously, but specifically for use when authentication is possible, but has failed or not yet been provided. So that is what this error is showing. Okay, so I'm not able to access this user controller, this particular API. I'm not able to access. Okay, let me check whether I can able to access the registration or not. So rage I given over here. So rage I have given here the rage, and here I'll say post. Okay, and I'll pass the body now. So here I'll give some user information. Let me just check once what are the properties are there. User ID I have to give. Okay, user name I have to give. So that you can also insert from this, from here also. User ID 108. Okay, username, you can say, you can give anything. Okay, user password I can give. I can say this user password can be anything, this like that. I'll give that user role also is there. User is which type actually, so that I can able to specify over here. So what should be the role of the user? User role. Role, I'll say you have the admin access. Now, so this is what registration, and I'll say send. So this also is providing unauthorization. But I said here in the configuration part, you can see user controller is not saved properly. No user controller is saved properly actually, and that is the reason it's saying that. Let me just check the web security also. Web security is properly. Let me just use override annotation over here. Okay, everything is fine now. Rage, and let me terminate this code once, and terminate this, and again let me start this application. There is one problem in the user controller. Oh, this is the URL is unauthorized registration process 6080. I am giving 2 minutes and let me give for a login. Uh, Let me just check for the login once whether it's working or not. User ID. Here I'll just check the user name and first let me check these two values. In this agreement inserted your records. Admin, let me give admin and admin at the rate 123. Okay, so admin, okay, and admin at the rate 123. Let me check this first once. Send this request. One after admin, admin at the rate 123. So you can see this preview. Admin is printing that whatever I'm printing over here. Now admin is printing. That means this is once we are giving the username password. Here it's printing this in the login. Just I'm printing the name of the user, right? You can also give some welcome message also. So login is working fine. Okay, welcome, something like that. I'm giving some space also I can add. So you can see here. But, let me check with the registration process also. Will check, but login is working here. So what I'll do here, I'm having this already existing data. With that data, if I give here the customer, so customer is the next information. Customer at the rate 123. Let me just get that. Customer and customer at the rate 123. Customer at the rate 123. And after that, I'll give authorization. You have to select basic auth. That is the reason in the configuration also I given here in the web security configuration. I given here uh, any request authenticated with the HTTP basic auth process. So here this authentication process will be basic auth. No auth means no authentication. Basic auth, and here you have to give the suppose what is the username I'm giving here, customer, and password is customer at the rate 123. So here I'm giving the customer, and here I'm giving customer at the rate 123. Okay, customer at the rate 123, and let's you say welcome customer. Okay, and after that if I'll access anything, like let me just access the what go to the user controller, let me access get info. Okay, get info. uh, why is the get info? This is the get info. So if I'll access get info, uh, here if I'll access get info, get method, and if I'll say this, see welcome is printing because get info is not now showing the forwarding, is after authentication is saying welcome. But some problem is happening with the registration process. Registration में क्या हो रहा है कि let me just go to the registration part, sorry, this configuration part. Here I wrote permit all and matches rage. Rage also is there. For this also I'm giving permit all. तो ये तो execute होना चाहिए. Raise should take the registration process. लेकिन reg में कर रहा हूँ तो it's not allowing me to store, right? अभी फिर से नया से अभी अलाउ करेगा because now if I run, let me just check whether allowing or not. Here I'll give user ID, okay, and I'll give here user ID 108. I'll give username, password, and user role equals to suppose admin. I'm inserting new record, admin. Let me just check. So it's giving and status is 200. It's showing. Okay. So it's returning this. You can see the user ID, password. You can returning in this response entity is returning that everything for us. Okay. So we can able to get that. But let me just start it again because I have already authenticated. Then only it's showing. If I'll not authenticate, and you can see here for every object we are also can able to print the session object. So just for understanding purpose, I'm printing this session object because I told it Spring Security is managing everything from the login to logout. Okay, so let me just terminate it once again and let me start it once again. This application, so Java application. Okay, and if I'll check for the registration, is saying unauthorized. See, but if as unauthorized is saying, but it should not say unauthorized actually. After login only, it's showing authorized. Before login, it's not saying authorized. Yes. Uh, where is my web security? Configure director. Here is having the login and matches. Connect all and matches this registration process I'm doing is correct. Yeah. Everything is working, but this post matching part is some post mapping we are using. Registration I'm giving the this and the same I'm passing over here, right? Page. And I'm saying here to permit this request. Uh, Otherwise, let me just check with this first registration. If I give order, it will maintain like this. Because first is checking with this. Second, a minute. Let me just terminate it. Okay, already started. It's already started actually. So now if I do registration, unauthorized 6080 reg post mapping saying unauthorized. Um, Terminate. Is the controller login registration everything is there. I have annotated the REST controller and login is working. We have checked web security part here registration permit all. Okay, and this It is and matches with login. Then this should be authenticated. Hmm. Hmm. Authenticated registration. You want to allow the login. So allow and just slash login is allowing. Yes, is allowing. Um, see this one. Anywhere. This also should come. Mm, so I have clicked this. Wait, body I given, JSON data I given, and same unfinished. But same time, get info also say unauthorized again. But once I'll do the login, then let me give the username password that but after some login you can able to do this because then only it's taking authorization. Then I suggestion here to give the authorization for that username customer customer 123 and once we give authorization customer 123 है इसमें तो it's aligned. Aligned. Oh, post request get. Now this is the post only, right? So post 2 minutes is not aligned for this also too. But कहीं पर तो कॉन्फ़िगरेशन का कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. एक मिनट. Registrations, if I'll give login and if I give here registration, I put that. Let me just terminate it. So slash login. I give in the authorization also. From where basic auth is username I give in customer. Let's check what is then customer at the rate 123. Customer at the rate 123. Customer at the rate 123. Body customers customer because what is here 60 2 minutes just let me http csrf एक पुराना प्रोजेक्ट किए थे पहले उसको एक बार करते हैं. 2 minutes some part let me just check whether setters I have created one this class actually which be so last request and matches. So this one also is done, right? Same thing I did over here also. Here instead of HS request, this is working. Disable authorized request and matches add user. I'm going to say permit all. and matches with login, permit all, any request authenticated. So that same thing, I the request should be authenticated. Okay. Mhm. Request authenticated. Just search पर फिर से एप्लीकेशन को स्टार्ट करते हैं तो guys, I'm sharing this code with you also because it's running actually. Let me just टर्मिनेट करके फिर इसको स्टार्ट करते हैं थोड़ा सा and as input application. So Spring Boot application, you can say run as Java application. Oh, it is already have executed. 2 minutes. Let me check once. After दोबारा execute कर दिया. Launch it. Localhost 6060 6080. Get info will not be permitted. It will say login, and if I say post, if I say uh, body here, body raw JSON, username and password if I give. Okay, so what is the username for this authentication? Authenticate class, username and user password will be here. So I have to give their username, customer, user password, customer at the rate 123, correct? And let me say the authorization. I'm going to select basic auth. This is the password, I think, because my database is there. View 401 unauthorized. Unauthorized file streaming is customer 138 and in body also I given customer 138 and let me just check one thing. It's what it's printing in the user details object. एक मिनट मैं इसको थोड़ा सा आप लोग को एक बार करके मैं एक बार करता हूँ देखता हूँ यूजर इन्फो में मतलब मैं पास कर रहा हूँ यूजर का डिटेल्स का ऑब्जेक्ट ओके एंड इट्स नॉट गोइंग मींस डिटेल्स ऑब्जेक्ट इज कमिंग एक्चुअली so it's not able to provide that unit. You know, some problem is happening. HTTP CSRF disable that and any authorized requests we are going to say login permitting and matches registration. It's not permitting this request registration. This one also. Okay. So if I use this permit permitting basic auth, no auth right now. We'll give we'll give an integrated to basic auth. Unauthorized. Let me print it over here. System.out.println. It's coming inside that or not? It's hitting this or not? Let me check. Not fit into a database. Donate. Shape. Two customer objects stored. Only one admin 123. Let me be admin username equals to admin, user password admin at the rate 123. Admin at the rate 123. Welcome admin is coming. And if I say now get info, authorize admin at the rate 123. Get info. If I give you a get, http basic basic.ish. Admin at the 123, suppose. Authorization admin days. Welcome admin. This is working. Get info. Is there get? Welcome. Now it's working. Registration part. Reg. Reg. Let me give the body. It's also working. User ID 102 or 110. Username is cyber. Password is cyber at the rate 123. And role of the user is user role is admin type. It's coming now. So it's saving to the database also. You can see here. So just I refresh that, it's working, but it is not. So guys, this is what the layers actually we have to create actually, and we can able to just do the basic authentication and what is expecting in our project actually. So this way we can able to do, and you please just include in your project. If you get any doubt, anything over there,
স্যার
and ping me. I'll yes.
স্যার এক সেকেন্ড স্যার, আমাদের একবার কোশ্চেনটা একবার দেখবেন, একটা জিনিস দেখানোর আছে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
এই মোদক কেউ আছিস, যাই অফিস ল্যাপটপে আছিস, কোশ্চেনটা একবার শেয়ার কর না। আছিস কে তোদের মধ্যে, দুজনের মধ্যে কেউ? হ্যালো
হ্যালো মোদক, anyone are there? সবাই
মোদক তো আছে স্যার, মোদক তো আছে, মিটে আছে স্যার।
মিটে আছে
অভিক
না?
আর মধ্যে কেউ কি অফিস ল্যাপটপে আছে? এদেরকে তাই শেয়ার করতে বলতাম, আমি নেই ওই।
হ্যাঁ স্যার আছি, বাট ফোন থেকে জয়েন করেছি।
ও
জয়েন করতে পারবি একবার অফিস ল্যাপটপ থেকে?
অফিস ল্যাপটপ থেকে তো জয়েন করতে পারবো না।
কেন দিবে?
করতে
তোমার
পারবি,
কাছে নেই?
করতে
তোমার
পারবি।
কাছে নেই? হ্যাঁ বলছি যে হ্যাঁ করতে পারবে বোধহয় দেব মোদক।
হ্যাঁ মোদক করতে পারবি তুই, আমিও অফিস ল্যাপটপ থেকেই জয়েন করেছি।
मोदक भी आपके टीम में ही है वजीर?
नहीं सर, मेरा दीपेंदु के साथ नहीं है, मैं वो हम लोग सुप्रतीक
दिव्येंदु के साथ
आगे।
है?
नहीं नहीं सर, दिव्येंदु और देवव्रत
मोद
आगे सर।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा। जे यूनिट वाला कल आप लोग को थोड़ा सा बता दूंगा, वो इजी है, मतलब वो टेस्ट केस @टेस्ट और मॉक ऑब्जेक्ट बना के थोड़ा सा उसको ही बता देंगे।
सर जे यूनिट तो थोड़ा बहुत भी आता है, पर मॉकिटो एकदम नहीं आता है सर।
मॉकिटो में कुछ @मॉक से आप एनोटेशंस है उसमें, @मॉक यूज करेंगे तो मॉक ऑब्जेक्ट बना देगा, व्हेन मेथड देन रिटर्न देन एक्सेप्शन। मैं आपको बताऊंगा कल, इजी है वो। जे यूनिट आता है तो मॉकिटो आप समझ जाएंगे,
सर ये
मतलब
वाला कोड भेज दीजिएगा सर।
हाँ इसको पूरा भेज देंगे। और एक बार
ग्रुप
आप
पे
लोग भी टेस्ट करिए ना, असलम आप लोग भी एक बार देखिएगा इसको टेस्ट करके, यदि
ठीक है
कुछ भी
सर।
डाउट होगा तो आप पिंग करिएगा मुझे।
सर एनोटेशन वाला भेज दीजिएगा।
हाँ एनोटेशन, और मैं 2 बजे के बाद थोड़ा सा चला जाऊंगा, मतलब पापा को ये दिखाने के लिए। तो मैं कल फिर आप लोग का, कल कब कब से लॉगिन करना है?
जी सर, टाइमिंग तो हम लोग तो घर में ही रहेंगे।
सेम सर।
टाइमिंग वजीर आप जब आप लोग बोलेंगे, मतलब दोपहर के पहले ही खत्म कर लेंगे सब कुछ।
ठीक है सर, तब हम आपको व्हाट्सएप में आज शाम को बता दें।
हाँ हाँ बताइएगा, और ये कोड मैं भेज दूंगा। और देखिए वैलिडेशन टेस्टिंग और लॉगिन जब करेंगे उसमें भी प्रॉब्लम आएगा, तो आप लोग कोड शेयर करिएगा मुझे। मान लीजिए सर के सामने नहीं शेयर कर पा रहे हैं, हाँ शेयर तो कर ही सकते हैं सर के सामने, एक बार मुझे पिंग करके। सर कैसे समझेंगे कि किससे हो, मतलब
हाँ वो तो सर।
गूगल मीट में लिंक करके बना के आप लोग मुझे ये कर सकते
नहीं
हैं।
सर,
हाँ
व्हाट्सएप में क्वेरी लिख देंगे तो सही नहीं, मतलब डाउट लिख देंगे तो फिर तो सॉल्व हो जाएगा ना।
वो भी कर दीजिएगा, और शाम को
हम
आके
मीट ऑन करेंगे तो सर वो इशू हो जाएगा। अच्छा, घर में हम लोग कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते क्योंकि वो शेयर्ड वो डेटाबेस है ना, वो सेम
अच्छा
नेटवर्क में रहना चाहिए।
शेयर डेटाबेस में आपको टेबल्स का इंफॉर्मेशन है ना, जो टेबल्स कैसा मैपिंग है, तो एक
हाँ वो तो
लोकल
डेटा
बना
है।
के एटलीस्ट चेक करके उसका गेटर्स मेथड घर में बना लेते हैं ना, तो कल आप लोग का क्या है कि बस उसी को कॉपी पेस्ट करना रहता है।
हाँ
और
सर, वही हम लोग तो वही कर रहे हैं सर, ग्रुप में आज शाम
हाँ
को डिस्कस करके वही करेंगे।
वही
एंटिटी
करिए,
क्लास हम
पूरा
लोग बना
गेटर
लेंगे।
बना लीजिएगा लोकल ये बना के।
हाँ हाँ
तो
वो कर।
वही लोकल जो देगा वही वही देगा, वो खाली शेयर्ड में है।
हाँ वो
ठीक
तो
है ना,
सही।
डमी डेटा यूज करके और गेटर मेथड को सब इम्प्लीमेंट कर लीजिए, क्योंकि टाइम नहीं है आपके पास,
हाँ सर।
क्योंकि इतना कुछ ये करना पड़ेगा। हाँ
ठीक है सर।
सर तो हेल्प कर रहा है ना वो, आपका सागर सर।
सर वो किस टाइप का हेल्प करे सर, वो हम भी कंफ्यूज हैं।
हाँ वो हेल्प मतलब बोलते नहीं है कुछ ना।
सर वो क्या ही बोलते।
मैं ही कराता प्रोजेक्ट आपको, तो अच्छा रहता, मतलब
हाँ
एटलीस्ट जैसे भी हो स्ट्रगल करके मैं आपको करा देता। चलिए जो भी है, ये भी सीखने को मिलेगा आप लोग को कि
শেয়ার
बहुत
করছি,
सारा
দাঁড়ান,
चीजें।
আমি শেয়ার করছি, এখন দাঁড়ান।
दिव्येंदु
হ্যাঁ আমি শেয়ার করছি এক মিনিট দাঁড়াও।
करो। तो स्प्रिंग सिक्योरिटी में आप लोग जो सीखे हैं, एक रिपोजिटरी क्या क्या कर रहा है वो जानते ही हैं आप, सर्विस क्लास क्या कर रहा है जानते ही हैं आप। स्प्रिंग सिक्योरिटी में सर्विस क्लास के साथ जो यूजर मॉड्यूल में काम करेंगे वो लोग यूजर डिटेल सर्विस को, इंटरफेस को इंप्लीमेंट कर देना है। उसमें लोड यूजर बाय यूजर नेम मेथड है, वो आपको कंट्रोलर से कॉल कर देना है। और इधर खाली एक एक्स्ट्रा क्लास में लिखा हूँ स्प्रिंग सिक्योरिटी कॉन्फ़िगरेशन वाला, जिसमें कॉन्फ़िगरेशन दो कॉन्फ़िगर मेथड है, एक ऑथेंटिकेशन मैनेजर बिल्डर ऑब्जेक्ट ले रहा है और एक एचटीटीपी सिक्योरिटी का ऑब्जेक्ट ले रहा है। तो एचटीटीपी सिक्योरिटी क्या ऑथराइज्ड के लिए हम लोग यूज कर रहे हैं कि एंड मैचेस ये तो परमिट, नहीं तो ऑथेंटिकेट, राइट। और हम लोग यदि बस हम लोग को अभी जितना चाहिए उतना हम लोग इतना इससे कर सकते हैं, राइट ना। तो थोड़ा सा आप लोग भी कोई करिए, आपका प्रोजेक्ट में कुछ ऐसा प्रॉब्लम होगा तो फिर मैं चेक करूंगा फिर से एक बार, और इस प्रोजेक्ट को भी रन कराइए आप लोग एक बार, आप अपने इससे चेक करिए इस प्रोजेक्ट को, है ना जी। और मैं क्योंकि बस इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करके ही देखना है। अभिज्ञान ये हो गया क्या? आप रिकॉर्डिंग किए हैं ना ये वजीर, इस रिकॉर्डिंग करेंगे तो वो लोग को भेज दीजिएगा।
हाँ सर यूट्यूब में रिकॉर्डेड है।
স্যার পিডিএফটা দেখতে পাচ্ছেন?
পিডিএফটা আসছে, ইউ আর প্রেজেন্টিং বলে লেখা আছে।
দাঁড়ান তাহলে দাঁড়ান দেখছি কি আছে।
সবাই দেখতে পাচ্ছে? वजीर दिखाई दे रहा है आपको पीडीएफ क्या है?